Welcome to another sort of Friday news roundup. I'm Natalie Bencivenga, and I'm here with my wonderful friend and colleague, Desmond Price of Independent Thought. And we're doing a shortened one today because of my schedule, but we're still gonna hit you with some good stuff. So,
Yes.
Desmond, we've got some great topics that we want to talk about. What do you want to lead with, though?
Probably the fact that the Gestapo just arrested
Oof.
the judge in Milwaukee, probably a good place to start because it is on
Yeah.
everyone's mind right now,
Mm.
as the Trump administration sent the FBI there, which is acting as their secret police, to
Mm-hmm.
go ahead. I guess it's not so secret; it's out in broad daylight. They
Sure.
had sent the FBI to Milwaukee to arrest a sitting judge for
Mm-hmm.
having the audacity of giving due process to immigrants who are sitting there. And I believe that the news has come down now that the judge has been released. But, as
Wow.
we've seen here, the Attorney General Pam Bondi is coming out and basically saying that this isn't the first, or this won't be the last time that this happens, but rather this is almost like a threat to
Mm-hmm.
judges around the country that if they interfere
Mm-hmm.
with the business of the Trump administration, that they could also be subject to being arrested in the future. So we, you know, there's, there were times, I think, in the first cycle, the first administration of Donald Trump, where I felt
Mm-hmm.
like criticisms might have been slightly hyperbolic. They are nowhere near that this time. They are all adequate when we're talking about what is happening with Donald Trump, with his
Yeah.
administration. It is very, very clear to me that we are actually in a constitutional crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie?
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw this story, I was just I wish I could say I was more shocked. I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was so enraged by this. How dare they? How dare they think that they are above the law? What bothers me
Yeah.
about all of this, all of it, because it's all interconnected, is this idea that somehow they are above the rest of us when we, in fact, are the government, right? It doesn't belong to Trump or Bondi or to Vance. It belongs to us, we the people. So I want to know, when are they going to be arrested for treason against the United States? Their job is to uphold the Constitution. He has flagrantly broken that oath now more than once, but to me, this is like clear cut beyond clear cut. So when do we step in as a people and say enough is enough? Because I think they're getting to the point where the gloves are coming off. So I want to know when ours are too.
It's hard to say what we're supposed to do, though, Natalie. If
I
we're
mean, I
being
have some thoughts,
100%
but I'm not going to
honest,
put them here.
I mean, it's getting more and more scary because of the way
Yeah.
that they're like weaponizing. I mean, I was seeing just yesterday about how they were sending the FBI into Michigan to,
Yep.
without search warrants, to break into the homes of pro-Palestine protesters who were all American citizens.
Yeah, they're citizens.
Yeah, and they just like broke into their homes and arrested them. We have taken that authoritarian drop
Yeah.
precipitously. It's
Yeah.
happened so quickly that I think they are really instilling fear in people all over the place. And I think the comparisons to the Third Reich are no longer hyperbolic in any way.
No.
I mean, we don't have to get into all the different similarities right now, but the
Sure.
point is it is scary how authoritarian they've become, how quickly they are essentially telling the entire government either fall in line or you will be disciplined. It's just, I'm not sure what we are supposed to do, Natalie. I mean, I'm kind of shell shocked seeing the news today. I really am.
Yeah.
I don't really know how are we supposed to react to them sending the FBI to arrest a judge for giving immigrants due process.
Right. And I think this is where the Democrats and the Republicans in Congress, they need to start having, if they're not already, wherever they can pick them off on the fringes, at least with the Republicans, some behind closed doors conversations around, we all need to be doing our job here. And our job is to represent the people of the United States, not this rogue entity that has now infiltrated our government. Because it's not just with immigration and with threatening judges. And, this judge was released. So I think that tells you that they are getting pushback. They're testing boundaries. They're testing limits. That's why they're kidnapping students first, right? They're trying to go in the sort of the dark corners where they can do things. But I do think they are being hit with resistance. And I don't want people to fall into despair or become paralyzed, because there are things that are happening and being pushed back on. But to your point, the word Nazi is being used now in a way that is not hyperbolic, but is very much representative of this government. And another thing that we can add to that conversation was recently, the Trump administration throwing around this idea about incentivizing women to have more children. Oh, we'll give them a $5,000 baby bonus, which is just insulting. That doesn't even cover your doctor visits. Give me a break. Yeah. But what I wanted to touch on, because I wrote about this in my Substack this week, was this idea of the motherhood medal. They were talking about having a medal for women that have had 6 or more children, which is straight out of the Nazi playbook. Stalin did this as well. Mussolini did something like this as well. And it's specific, of course, to a certain type of woman that they're going to be rewarding for this kind of behavior. And it really brings me back to this idea that all of this is about control and the consolidation of power, right? Because we're controlling now the mode of reproduction and also who we want to reproduce. And I think this is going to be interesting for the pro-life crowd that has attached themselves to Trump. How are they going to feel when RFK Jr. does start to roll out his eugenics programs? Because that is coming, and anyone who thinks it isn't paying attention. And we start saying that the right thing to do is to abort these certain fetuses. And that, to me, is really going to be a very line in the sand, I think, even for more of his ardent supporters, if they are going to have that crisis of faith, because we are here. Like, I don't know how much more people need to see to understand that fascism has come to America wrapped in a flag and carrying the Bible like people said it would many moons ago. And I'm very concerned if we become afraid, that's when they will thrive. I don't know if you were ever bullied as a kid. I was, and the only way to fight a bully is to show them your teeth.
Yeah. I definitely had some experiences with that growing up.
Yeah.
And
and let me just say this, Desmond, someone responded and gave a nice comment here. Stanley Thompson, he said, Hitler didn't just start arresting judges on day 1. He waited 18 months, just long enough to consolidate power, control the press, and normalize fear. By year 3, the courts belonged to him. Today, a judge was arrested. This is way ahead of schedule. We still have 2 years and 6 months before the next election. We must resist before it's too late.
Yes, it's going to be, unfortunately, a long time before we can even start turning some of these things over. But I mean, yes, the traditional way of going about having, helping people start having more families is to, do things like hire, raise the minimum wage, make it easier to access childcare, make it easier so that people can actually afford to have a child, affordable housing, better healthcare, things of that nature. So there's so many different reasons why people don't have children, but I think one of the driving factors for a lot of people is economic reasons.
It's money.
They don't have the ability to raise a child in this. I mean, people are having a hard enough time taking care of themselves right now.
That's right.
So how can you expect someone to turn around and then raise a child when they can barely afford rent, when they can barely afford food? They have no money for medication. They can't buy a house right now. They're sitting over here wondering why they can't save anything for retirement. You're asking someone to turn around and bring a child into the world. Do you know how expensive children are?
Right.
So I mean, it's so detached from reality. I mean, I don't want to get super personal here, but we have put off having children for that reason because it's just too expensive. It is too expensive. I'm just we can't afford it. Seriously. So
I don't think, no, I just wanted to add to your point. I'm looking off camera because I'm reading my notes, but this article talking about this issue from iHeartRadio, it said in a statement, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the administration is proudly implementing policies to uplift American families. The president wants America to be a country where all children can safely grow up and achieve the American dream. As a mother myself, I'm proud to work for a president who's taking significant action to leave a better country for the next generation. Can you imagine what it must be like to be this delusional and have to lie this much all the time?
They don't care.
I know. But
they don't care. They don't care.
It's like a Black Mirror episode. It's insane to me. It's like what is she saying? What is she talking about?
It's so detached from reality. At the same time, when you're seeing red state after red state go through and remove child labor laws. Having these children, especially in Florida, in Arkansas, in Iowa, they are having them work like 6 days a week during the school year in factories, they're advocating to pay them less than minimum wage. Just like, are we serious right now? The party that protects children, it couldn't be anything further from the truth. It's a perversion.
It is a perversion. You know, I was emceeing the Pittsburgh Learning Collective yesterday, and it was an incredible conglomerate of all these different educators and community organizers coming together, trying to figure out what we can do for education. And I know we want to talk about education here in a moment, but the one part was a breakout session, and they started talking about the students that they work with who are homeless and trying to work with homeless students. And I'm sitting there just listening as, you know, just as the MC, I didn't have a, you know, horse in the race. And I'm thinking to myself, this is sick that we are having to have a conversation because there are so many homeless, unhoused children in the United States that it has now become a point of concern to raise at a city level, a county level conference. Yeah. Just taking that in for a moment. It's like we can't even take care of the kids who are here. We refuse to take care of the kids who are here. And they want us to have more kids. Fuck that. No.
This, meanwhile, while they are also gutting the Department of Education, making it harder for children to actually access something, you know, that basically everyone needs, education to get through childhood.
That's a human right.
You know, and let's just transition that to also attacking education on another level, on the higher education level, as we talk about the Trump administration restarting student loan repayment, which we kind of all inevitably thought this would happen, but now they're also going a step further, saying that people who cannot pay are going to have their loan sent into collections. They're going to have tax returns essentially rescinded from them, and they're also going to have their wages garnished. And this is coming after they said, like, oh, you know, you can't expect the taxpayers of America to subsidize the student debt that has been taken on by all these folks who went to college and took out these loans. I cannot get over the hypocrisy that comes from this particular topic. You know, I posted on Instagram a couple of times this week about this subject, and so I'm a little riled up about it, but they gave out billions and billions of dollars in PPP loans.
Gleefully.
In 2020 to all of these businesses. They forgave 80% of them.
Yeah.
80% of these loans, including loans that were given to members of Congress. Like, they forgave those loans. And yet they turn around and said that the people who took out student loans, who have not been able to repay them, you're just SOL. You know, let's talk about it for a second, because they always, like, when they talk about this in the media, they always make it seem like, oh, these lawyers, these doctors, these really high-paid people, they just don't want to pay back their loans. Like, listen, if you had a high-paying job, you don't have student loans, really. And the likelihood of you having student loans is actually really rare in comparison to somebody who either has a job now that doesn't really pay them that much, but they still went to school and took out a lot of loans to get their degree, or more probable is the fact that there are millions of people who started college and were not able to finish for one reason or another, and are still saddled with these loans for years of their lives with no degree whatsoever to show for it. Yeah. So, I mean, go ahead.
No. I hear everything that you're saying. I guess let's take it a step further too. Let's talk about the predatory loan system, right? Where you have people that have paid back their loans many times over and yet will never get out of this because of the way the interest compounds on these loans. People that took out 100K have paid back 164 and still have another 100 somehow to pay. Like the math ain't mathin'. It doesn't make sense. No. First of all, I truly believe personally that higher education should be free. I believe an educated population is a population that appreciates and embraces democracy and takes care of each other better, is a more compassionate, more worldly civilization when we are an educated one, right? So that's my personal feeling on this. But if we are going to force people to pay to be educated, then why are we giving them interests on these loans at all? Like, they should at least at the very minimum be interest free, if not paid for by our collective dollars that go into our systems. So when I hear that tired rhetoric of, if you couldn't afford it, you shouldn't have gone. But then on the flip side, well, if you want a better job, you better go to school. It's like, what this is really about is the people in poverty need to stay in poverty because we need a
Yes.
working class so that the upper middle and the rich can benefit off of the backs of those people. And if those people become educated and move up in the world in economics, in an economic way, then who's going to be left to do the grunt work, quote unquote, that nobody wants to do? It's a way to demean and diminish labor, because all labor, all jobs are intrinsically valuable. No matter what your job is, it is valuable, but it's a way of demeaning and diminishing. And also it's creating that hierarchical capitalistic structure. And we know who makes the laws. It's business owners, right? This was written for them. That's why the loans, the PPP loans, were forgiven, because those guys wrote those laws. So, if you had a bunch of students and working class people writing these laws, which in my opinion, that's really who should be centered at these meetings, you would see a very different outcome. But here we are once again, letting the ruling class tell us what to do, giving us a crumb and telling us to be thankful. I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it.
Yes, I am also sick of it. And I think the thing that, I don't want to get too far into the history here, but the additional fact that you cannot actually get rid of these loans also is really predatory to me. When I think about the predatory nature of these loans, the fact that you can claim bankruptcy and that these loans will still stay with you.
I know, it's disgusting.
And we have that thanks to a bankruptcy bill that was pushed through Congress back in the early 2000s, to which I will forego all the details of that right now. But there are a couple
Wasn't that
perpetrators.
Biden that supported that?
There were a couple of perpetrators. One of them was a former president who actually pushed that through. So we do have a crisis in the Democratic Party as well that we need to address, don't we?
Yes, we sure do. And I think there are people in the Democratic Party who are stepping up to the plate and trying to address it, but not everybody's, let's say,
happy about it.
Right. Tell us a little bit about that.
So David Hogg, a younger guy, he got involved, I think, in politics after the Parkland shooting was, because I think he was a survivor of that. He is now the vice chair of the DNC. He came out recently and said that he is going to spend $20 million primarying Democrats that are in safe seats. So these really deep blue districts with Democrats that they feel are not meeting the moment. He wants to go in, spend $20 million to have these sitting Democrats be primaried and say, like, hey, we need a generational change. We need to get you out of there. You're not really fighting enough. He's targeting Democrats who he thinks are kind of just sitting back and just not really resisting the Trump regime the way that it needs to be done. Now, the DNC president has come out and said that basically if you go through with this, that you have to actually leave the DNC. You're not allowed to have a leadership position if you go through with this. Talking about rules of neutrality and things of that nature, which I think is a bunch of garbage, because the DNC has constantly been picking people in the past about who they want to favor and who they don't want to favor. And so I think more importantly here, rather than the DNC's reaction to him, because that's inevitable, they want to pressure this guy not to do this because Democrats are worried about losing their seats. But I really believe in the merits of this, Natalie. I think that going in there and pressuring Democrats to essentially face these tough primary challenges, hopefully ousting quite a few of them, is what we need for the party. How do you feel, though?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And Palatos also said, light a fire under their rear ends, which really sums up my position on this, because look, this is the time for bold action. This is the time for innovative thinking and big thinking and thinking beyond this moment. And the status quo ain't gonna get us there. And I think it's interesting too, that on the flip side of that, you have people like Pete Buttigieg, and you had told me this before we started. He went on a recent right-leaning talk show. Right?
Yes,
what was
Flagrant.
It called? Flagrant. Thank you. And and people, I guess, were talking about the merit or him having he should not have gone on that in the debate back and forth. And I think that's really interesting too, because I think these are the two places the Democrats keep falling into. It's either we got to go more left, which is really just moderate left, or we got to kiss the ring and appease the Republicans, or maybe we're not. Maybe we're going on as a foil and we're going to tell them what's really happening and give it to them straight. And so it's like there's these two camps. And when we talk about how the right imploded not too long ago and MAGA resulted of that, what's going to happen when the left implodes? Because I think it is happening, and we've got a schism going on here which way is this really going to fall? Because in my opinion, I think we should be moving much further to the Bernie AOC progressive wing of the party, which is where 72% of Democrats think the party should be moving. But you have the minority in charge of this party still that feels as though we need to go back to the middle. What are your thoughts as we wrap up?
So really quickly, I think that there are too many Democrats that feel that they are untouchable. I think that it's absolutely important to be primarying them. There are so many of them who don't really want to meet this moment. I mean, think about how many Democrats you actually see on a consistent basis speaking up against what's happening in the Trump regime right now. It's probably, I mean, let's
like the
just
same
do a quick count right now. There are 250 of them between the House and the Senate. You probably see the same 10 names over and over again. Right? Everyone else apparently can't even bother to make a tweet, let alone do anything else, right? So yes, I would love to see more of them cycled out of here. I said many times over that I think the Democratic Party needs to be stripped down and just
term
completely replaced. I mean, I would love to see us maybe retain 20 of these people and then just shuffle the rest of the party out and get new people in. Now, on the other hand here, with Pete Buttigieg, I was actually happy to see him go on this show.
Okay.
Because the Flagrant Show is a show that is really right-wing coded, but I think it's also a place where people who find themselves to be like apolitical go to get their news. And so I think this is a highly just like uneducated population. Politically uneducated in the sense that they don't really go to seek the news that much. And so this group of guys, they usually bring in a bunch of right-wing people to then disseminate a bunch of disinformation. So I think Pete Buttigieg has made it almost like a career recently off of going into places like Fox News and challenging their narratives, unlike someone like Gavin Newsom, who invited Charlie Kirk onto his podcast just to basically tell him how great that he was.
I totally forgot that.
Yes.
I think I blocked that out. Yes.
Yeah. So long story short, Pete Buttigieg going on there and challenging right-wing talking points and establishing, what I found to be were important narratives to be sharing with that audience, a really big audience, mind you, the Flagrant Podcast has. I thought it was good. I think more people should do it. I think as long as you're going in there and you're defending the right principles and you're attacking the rights where it needs to be attacked, then I think that more people should be doing these things.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And that's why I was trying to make a differentiation between kissing the ring and standing up and speaking truth to power in spaces that you're not welcome. Because I think the danger that the Democrats don't want to fall into, which I do think the Republicans have, is creating such a concentrated silo that they're literally not engaging with the reality around them, which is very problematic for a whole host of reasons that we don't have time to get into today. But I think infiltrating spaces is very important. And also reminding people that, these are people that exist and have perspectives and lives, and they're humans. And I think it does humanize you when you're in a space and someone from the other side is forced to look you in the eye and have a conversation, as opposed to behind a screen and talking a bunch of garbage about this person that is really, in their minds, not a real person. So I do think for those reasons, it's important. But to your point, as long as that's the goal and it's not to, talk to anybody as if they're special, like Gavin Newsom was doing.
Gavin Newsom's a problem.
He is such a problem. We could do a whole show just on him. And I hope we get to do that very soon. And to everybody that was able to tune in today, thank you so much for kind of doing a speedy show with us. I have a bit of a time crunch, so I have to jump off. But Desmond, I always so appreciate our chats. And once again, we managed to get through a lot in 20 minutes. So good for us.
Yeah. We'll do a longer one next time. So
absolutely.
So we can actually kind of like, I had a lot more on these topics I would love to get out there, but we will do more next time. For those who are not following Natalie already, I think it's the top left portion of your screen, top right portion of your screen, go ahead and click the follow button. You want to be following Natalie on here on Substack, as well as on Instagram. Really great journalist, great content. Make sure that you are following Natalie Bencivenga. And we'll be doing these, it looks like every Friday.
We're trying.
That could change, but as of right now, we're going to be doing these every Friday. I also have an interview coming up with a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in the state of Iowa on Monday, Nathan Sage. So if you happen to be around on Monday afternoon, please go ahead and check that out. It should be at 3 o'clock Eastern time, 1 o'clock where I'm at in the mountains. So Natalie, do you have anything coming up?
Yeah, I have a lot of interesting things coming up, but I wanted to add that, you know, my mom's from Iowa. So
Oh,
next time we do an Iowa connection, I got to be a part of it because, man, I love that state. It's full of wonderful
yeah,
people, and they vote very interesting. It's a politically interesting state. So I'll be very
it
curious to
is.
see how that goes for
It
sure.
is. All right, everyone. So thank you so much for checking us out this time, and we will see you next Friday.
Bye, guys.